So, council, I direct you to council document number 22 and call upon Barbara Stripling, Freedom to Read Foundation President, to present the report. And welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. It's nice to be able to report. I would like to encourage all of you all to read the council document 22. I'm trying to be very brief in this oral report, but you'll find some really interesting information, discouraging but interesting, in the full document, council document 22. New litigation, I want to talk about two items. The first is Coleman v. Grand, and we joined an amicus curiae brief authored by the reporters of Committee for the Freedom of the Press that provides additional protection for speakers making comments on matters of public concern, such as comments made by individuals about sexual harassment in the music industry. And so we'll wait to see how that comes out. The second is HAP v. Facebook, and we've joined an amicus curiae brief authored by Council for the Electronic Frontier Foundation. We often collaborate with them, that argues that excluding state publicity rights claims from Section 230 immunity, and this is really important for libraries, would impair the ability of online platforms and other online intermediaries to host content created by users, forcing email providers, social media platforms, any site that supports user-generated content, including libraries, to tailor their sites to ensure compliance with the most restrictive state laws, and the laws are different in every state. Current litigation, we actually have some good news. The Supreme Court ruled on two issues that we were involved in. The first and best known, I imagine, is BLB Mahoney, and this was filed by a high school cheerleader who was expelled from her high school cheerleading team because she posted a profanity-laced Snapchat post on her own time, on her own computer, and it was not a time that she was scheduled to be at school. On June 23rd, 2021, the Supreme Court, at a ruling of 8-1, ruled that her speech really was protected by the First Amendment, and that it did not create the kind of substantial disruption that would justify her punishment. Good. Students do have First Amendment rights. The second case, Americans for Prosperity Foundation v. Bonta, addressed the association and privacy rights of members of nonprofit associations, and that's certainly what the Freedom to Read Foundation is. The California Attorney General had issued a ruling that nonprofit and charitable organizations, if they were soliciting contributions and it did not file a Schedule B for the IRS, they would have to disclose the name, address, and total contributions of any contributor who donated more than $5,000 or 2% of the organization's budget. Now, we all know what a chilling effect that would be, because many donors do not wish their names published. So we joined an amicus curiae brief, and we argued that the government should bear the burden of demonstrating a compelling interest in requiring the disclosure of donor information. And thank goodness the Supreme Court struck down that California ruling. We are continue to work strongly on the intersection between intellectual freedom and social justice. The most exciting news that we have is that we're planning a symposium, and the work is being led by Task Force Chairs Sukrit Goswami and Sophia Sotilio. The symposium will be titled "Where Intellectual Freedom and Social Justice Meet: a call to action. We are planning it for this summer, 2 half-day virtual events in July, and I'd like for you to stay tuned for more information and for the ability to participate and offer to present and provide content. The Judith Krug Memorial Fund is always busy. A lot of our work funding goes through there. We offered Banned Books Week grants to 5 libraries across the country for events during Banned Books Week. We offered half scholarships and copies of the new Intellectual Freedom Manual to students who are in courses at the University of Illinois iSchool and San Jose State University School of Information, who are taking intellectual freedom courses. And finally, we offered a webinar on December 9th with FTRF General Counsel Teresa Chamara and Executive Director Deborah Caldwell Stone and Megan Cusick, ALA's Director of State and Local Advocacy, to present managing and addressing book challenges in your community, law, policy, and advocacy. It's available online free for all of you all, and I highly recommend that you watch the webinar. It's very informative, and I think it will help you deal with issues that you might be facing. I'd like to end with a call to action. I'm not very good at just reporting without figuring out what do we need to do in this time of continuing increase in challenges and disruption in intellectual freedom. First, we need to communicate with one voice. We all need to be dedicated to the principles of intellectual freedom and to the power of libraries to reflect the identities of every member of our communities and the positive impact that our libraries make on inclusion rather than exclusion and divisiveness that censorship brings up. What can you do? You can share your stories, provide opportunities for members of the community to express their own voices. Second, we need to advocate through action. We need to issue intellectual freedom statements, to write op-eds, to interview diverse authors, make presentations to decision makers. We're finding a great pressure on school boards, for example. Well, let's cut it off and make presentations before we run into challenges. Third, we need to battle censorship by strengthening our policies, reporting challenges to ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom. Speak out for intellectual freedom and against censorship. We have 2 messages here. We need to counter the personal impact on colleagues who are facing challenges. It is emotionally very disturbing, and we need to recognize that and support our colleagues. One of the things that you can do is to connect them to the Merit Fund. Possibly they could get financial relief, but let them know that you hear them, you see them, and you will support them. Of course, I'm inviting you to become a member of the Intellectual Freedom, the Freedom to Read Foundation and the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable. These are important for maintaining support. We invite your membership, not only personal membership, but also your organization, your library, your chapter to join as an organizational member. We use that money to fund our various efforts to make sure that we can provide national support for our freedom to read, our freedom to advocate for racial and social justice, and our freedom to raise up our voices for all of those who have been silenced and marginalized throughout our history. I think there will be in the chat, I'm not looking at it right now, but you should have the website, www.ftrf.org, and feel free to donate however much you want in addition to your membership. Finally, I would just like to encourage all of us to be leaders and warriors for intellectual freedom. we can all become advocates for civil liberties and the right of freedom of expression for all members of our community. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Barbara, for that and for reminding us that we all have that responsibility to support intellectual freedom when and where we can. And thank you very much for that report. We always look forward to hearing from you and from the Freedom to Read Foundation. It's very, very sobering, but we're so glad that you're doing such great work, and what a wonderful complementary in terms of actions with our own Office for Intellectual Freedom. So thank you for that. Are